Good morning, AP Euro. I just wanted to take a little bit of time today to show you guys how to do a couple of these things, just to model a little bit of it for the DBQ planning process, because I realized we didn't really get a lot of time to do it. So I wanted to go through it and show you the process of reading through a document, kind of talking about the content of it, and then explaining the different pieces of it in your apps process, which I know most of you know how to do already, but I just wanted to go ahead and go through it again. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through document number 5 because it's written by a guy named Voltaire, who we haven't talked about yet, although you're going to hear a lot about him pretty soon here. But I'm going to read through this document. I'm going to annotate it a little bit, and then I'm going to go into our DBQ planner here. Okay, whoops. I don't know why I did that. Probably because I was using the pen to try and scroll because I am getting older every day. And then I'm going to describe the content of it, the audience, the purpose, the point of view, and the historical situation. So, or 2 of those, right? Because I only have to do at least 2. Then I think what I'll do is I'll model to you guys how to write a thesis based on just the one document I've read. And then to go down here and show how I will put this document into my argument. So let's go ahead and start. Whoops, I don't need to go up that far. Let's go ahead and start with modeling this. So first of all, I'm always going to start with my source because I want to know who, what, when, and where. Okay, so this is written by Voltaire, a French author, and this is a history of Peter the Great, the Emperor of Russia, written in 1759. I'm just going to do a quick checkup for myself right here because I tend to forget dates and times. I'm about 90% positive that Peter the Great is dead by the time of this writing. And yes, he was. Okay, so 1728 or 25. This was written in 1759. He's been dead for almost 25 years. So I'm going to go in here into my content. And before I even start reading it, I'm going to be able to say, is there a way to make this like, can I, no, well, that sucks. I was kind of hoping I could make it so it looks like it's in the middle of the page. No, why would it not? Dang it. It just didn't format correctly. I'm just going to have to deal with it and get over it, okay? So I'm going to write here, this book was written by Voltaire, French author, Life of Peter the Great, 1759. ETG died in 1725. So this book would be a work of history or a biography. Okay, so that's something I just got from the sourcing even before I actually get into talking about it. You could also put that in the historical situation, right? Okay, the historical situation of this book is 25 years following the subject, P, my face out of the way because no one needs to see that, PT, oh God, now it's focusing on my face. Everything's falling apart. You guys are seeing a peek behind the curtain. PTG's death. Okay, I'm not going to comment on anything about that yet because I haven't really dug in too deep into this yet, and we haven't even gotten to the 18th century yet in class. So you don't have to really heavily focus on something like that. We haven't really dug in as far as we can go. I know because I teach this that we're about to enter the French Revolutionary era, the time of nationalism and just new feeling. This is after the Enlightenment, but we haven't gotten there yet. So you don't have to worry about those situations. And that's why here I would just include that as my historical situation. Although, remember, for my DBQ, okay, if one of my points is literally just to analyze the point of view, historical situation, audience, or purpose of a document, if I analyze it even by just saying, okay, this book was written 25 years after the death of Peter the Great, I have just shown to the person grading my DBQ that I know the historical situation of this document because I know when Peter the Great died. Hopefully that makes sense. So like you're really just like trying to prove what you know about the different topics, and that's just going to be something that you can do. Right? So I'm going to go back in my document, actually read it instead of just like blah, blah, blahing about it. Okay. A set of English merchants gave Peter 15,000 pounds sterling for the permission of vending tobacco in Russia. The patriarch, so the patriarch right here is anytime you see one of these little things, always look down to see what the definition is. So the patriarch is the leader of the Russian Orthodox Church. He's basically like the Pope. Okay. The Russian Pope, by mistaken severity, had interdicted this branch of trade, for the Russian Church forbade smoking as an unclean and sinful action. Peter, who knew better things and who, amongst his many projected changes, mediated a reformation of the church and introduced this commodity of trade into his dominion. So he mediated a reformation of the church, introduced this commodity of trade. Okay. So let me go ahead and mark a couple more things here. I'm going to say gave Peter 15,000 pounds sterling. Hey guys, that's a lot of money. 15,000 pounds sterling was a lot of money back then. That's silver, by the way. That's what sterling is. Okay, for the permission of vending tobacco in Russia. Okay, so what we know about Peter the Great from what we've studied and what we read is that Peter the Great is really trying very hard to westernize Russia and trying to remove the influence of the boyars, because the boyars are like kind of competing with his power and he wants to have an absolutist kingdom. So what we see here is literal evidence of him trying to bring in a commodity that he believes will make him stronger and give him power. So he's going to override the Roman Catholic, sorry, not the Roman Catholic. I'm used to saying that over and over again in my class. The Russian Orthodox Church, override it and change a very distinctive part about Russian culture by introducing tobacco smoking, something that he knows he can make money off of, and something that will decrease the traditional influence of the ruling class. So in here, I'm going to do my summary of content, say, this chapter of Voltaire's book covers Peter the Great's inclusion of tobacco sales in Russia, which overrides the powers of the Russian Orthodox Church. Okay? So when I go back in here now, I want to look to see if there's anything else that I can take out so I can add into my apps process, so like my audience purpose, point of view situation, before I start actually writing about it. So first of all, let's go ahead and see if we want to write about audience. So who's the audience for this document? So if Voltaire is a French author and he's writing a history, generally we can assume that in the audience part, okay, the only people who would read this document would be educated French people. Okay? This matters because 97% of the French people were in the third estate. They were peasants. Okay? Obviously, you guys aren't going to know that yet unless you've read ahead and you've already figured that out. But you can assume, right? Or it would only be educated people because peasants can't read. Okay? Sorry, peasants. We haven't gotten there yet. All right? This is really key, though, because Voltaire is writing this for French people in his country. What other French king have we talked about? That's right, class. Louis XIV. Okay, so Voltaire is going to be writing this comparison of Peter the Great and the kings of France because he's trying to make a point about the way that absolutist kings run their countries, right? If we look back in here, the Russian church forbids smoking, says it's unclean and sinful. Peter, who knew better things and who, amongst his many projected changes, meditated a reformation of the church and introduced this commodity of trade into his dominions, okay? And the patriarch, by mistaken severity, had interdicted this branch of trade. Basically, Voltaire is just trying to talk about how, despite the wishes of the Russian Orthodox Church, which most Russians bought into and believed because they thought it was their moral guidelines, Peter overrode it, said, wait, I know better, and then started to do things for his country that he believed he knew better. Voltaire is doing something called satire. He's kind of the one that comes up with it. Obviously, we haven't gotten into that yet. But really what this is talking about here is just how an absolutist king would just override the beliefs and faith and other things in his country to do what he thought was best. Okay? So the purpose of this document is, at face value, to tell the reader about a situation where the absolutist of Russia overrode his church and installed a new economy or a new economic resource into his country. Okay, deeper than that, we can assume this is a criticism of absolutism. Okay, what is the point of view of the author? Again, this is something that you would have to look up, or you would have to, ask your teacher. But because we haven't talked about Voltaire, this is the reason why I'm telling you all this stuff. Okay, Voltaire was an Enlightenment writer. He believed heavily in the downfall of absolutism and more rights for the people in the face of a king or queen. Okay, this matters because it tells us that he is not positive about the subject of his book. Okay? Maybe I can, whatever, we'll just do that. Okay, and then the historical situation of the book is 25 years following the subject, Peter the Great's death. This means this is a work of history and a commentary on what he represents, not necessarily his actual ruling style, because he's dead. Okay, so I've done my analysis. That's one document, right? So again, all of this is focusing into me answering my prompt, and the prompt is, scroll back up so we can review it. Oh God, what did I do? How did I do that? Let's bring it back in here. Thank you. Okay. Evaluate whether European absolutists consolidated their government power primarily to fulfill their own personal ambitions or to strengthen their nations in the period 1600 to 1750. Okay. Based on what I've read so far, I can make an argument either way. It's up to you. It's the context of the document itself, like what it actually states, doesn't really go against one or the other. It just kind of states something about Peter the Great. So I'm just going to go ahead and write a thesis based on this for both. Okay. So I could say, there we go, absolutist, right? Absolutist rulers consolidated their government power to fulfill their own personal ambitions, shown in Peter the Great's desire to make tobacco an economic product in Russia. Sorry, I'm trying to think of the right word. Maybe superseding. That's way overdone, but I'm going to do it anyway because I have a meeting to go to in 5 minutes. Superseding the wishes of the Russian. Spell that wrong? Oh yeah, I did. Dang it. The wishes of the Russian Orthodox Church. Okay. Next one could be absolutist rulers consolidated their government power to strengthen their nations, shown in Peter the Great's decision to bring tobacco into his economy in order to strengthen his overall income. These aren't great, but they'll work, especially for the fact that I have to go to a meeting in 4 minutes. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is after I've made that thesis, I want to go and I want to include how this document is actually going to help support my thesis. So I'm just going to type in for both. So document 5, okay, Voltaire, Peter the Great. Okay. Down here. Paste it so I can get this done in time. Okay. And then what I would do, guys, is I would just follow this exact process that I'm about to do, is just list out like, okay, here are my different pieces of information that I can speak to. I'm going to include like 1 or 2 quotes here. I'm going to talk a little bit about my additional information I can speak to on these and include a little bit of my own reasoning on how this document can actually help me. So if I'm trying to use it to support my claim, okay, for absolutist rulers consolidated their government power to fulfill their own personal ambitions, I can go back in here and say that a set of English merchants gave Peter 15,000 pounds sterling for the permission of vending tobacco in Russia. So I'm going to quote that. Go down here. Set of English merchants. Okay. Where is mine? A set of English merchants gave Peter 15,000 pounds sterling, okay, for permission of vending tobacco in Russia. For the permission of vending tobacco in Russia. Peter's interest in receiving tobacco was not related to his desire to strengthen Russia. It was focused on his desire for personal money and gain. If he had wanted to strengthen Russia, he would have included the Russian Orthodox churches, that's it, churches, wishes in his decision. Okay, again, it's not perfect, but this is the process that I'm looking to see if you guys can do. I'm going to analyze a document first. After I do all 5 of them, I'm going to write my thesis. Then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to start analyzing my evidence and figure out if it's going to support my argument or go against it. Okay, so hopefully that helps. If you guys have any other questions, I'm going to be in the Google Meet room. Again, if you go into a website, I guess I only changed it for the actual classroom and not my master class. Okay. Oh God, I didn't change it in here either. Edit this. Get this out of the way. No topic there. That'll be all at the top. Excuse me. Okay. I'll be in this Google Meet room general all day. You guys should be working on your DBQ planning. And don't forget that you need to also be doing your Albert practice and your reading notes and your vocab. Okay? Oh, and one more thing. Do you guys know why pirates can never finish the alphabet? It's because they always get lost at sea. Have a good day.